Hello and welcome to this tutorial which was looking at using hex codes to get colours rather than RGB codes or CMYK codes. Now this came about from, I made a tutorial the other day for Affinity Photo, which is the program I'm going to be using this in, but you could pretty much, I think you can use it in just about any photo editing program because they all use hex codes. Now it's just easier to pass along the information about a colour that I would want to use in a tutorial, be it a written tutorial or a verbal tutorial like this one, is to pass along that colour as a hex code. Now I've had a couple of people say to me, like beginners who didn't know what hex codes were or how to enter them. So like I said, this has been done in Affinity Photo. If you're using this in a different program, you'd have to find out how that particular program enters the hex code. Now, at the moment I have this blank layer here, and let's say I want to fill this with a colour. So if I come to the flood fill tool, and at the moment the colours are black or white, and if I double click on the white here, I have the color chooser that I can pick. Now it is currently set up on the CMYK, so let me move this to RGB. So these are the RGB codes, so you can see that for the color that it's set on at the moment, which is white, the code is for RGB is 255, 255, 255. And if I move this down to black, which is all the way down here, the code is 000. So it's a green in the middle. The code is 54, 255, 61. So I think it's probably a bit harder for me to pass on that information quickly, because I'd have to say, if I wanted you to use this green in a tutorial, I'd have to say you set red to 54, set green to 255, and set blue to 61. Whereas if I tell you to use the hex code, and hex code is normally preceded by the hash, you don't have to do the hash in Affinity Photo. You may have to in other programs, but the hex code for that green is 36FF3D, which is a lot easier to pass on just a 6-character number than it is to sort of say to you R is 54, green is 255, blue is 61. So it just makes it easier for me to use hex codes rather than RGB or the equivalent. If I want to do it in CMYK, I would have to say cyan is 96, magenta is 0, yellow is 100, and black is 0 to get that colour. So that is why it is easier for me and other people who do tutorials to use hex codes. Now, just to sort of, let me just shut that. So at the moment, so this is set to that colour that I picked, and if I just flood fill that, it is going to be that colour. So that is how simple it is. If I just passed on that number to you, you would get the same colour. Now I'm going to do, I've written this bit out, so I'm going to read this bit, and it's going to be a very, very simplified explanation of hex codes. So because the hex code is just 6 characters long, when written down it is normally preceded by the hash symbol. Like I said before, you don't have to enter this hash symbol in Affinity Photo, but you may have to in other programs. Now, hex numbers are, and this is a very simplified way of explaining this, a way of writing down any number or a written character down as a 0 or a 255. No, sorry, I got that slightly wrong. writing down the number is in 2 characters, and those 2 characters will represent any number from 0 to 255. So that 0 is actually 0 and 255 is FF. Now binary, which is what all computer programs are written in, is just ones and zeros. So the human mind really can't just read ones and zeros and know what it is or what is going on. So they devise like the hex symbols to help denote the difference between letters and numbers and what have you. So, and they're divided into 2 brackets, numbers, characters, from 0 to FF. So if we look at have a quick look at this, this is like what everybody knows is like what looks like a computer program. Now again, I don't understand what any of this means, but somewhere in there might be a colour number. So there might be this whole section here might be saying set the background colour to say 4168 3B. So if we have a quick look and see what colour that would make. What did I say it was? 4168 3B, I think I said. So if I change that and come to the hex colour, so we go 4168 3B, and this would be this dark green colour. So somewhere in that code there might be a sentence saying set that colour to 4168 3B. Now I don't understand this, like I said, but the computer program will. It will convert what humans understand, which is the hex codes, into what the computer understands, which is binary. So basically that is how you would enter and use hex codes. Let me just come back to this. And then in Affinity Photo, at least, if you've got the RGB slider, the hex code will be down here, and if you come to CMYK, the hex code can still be found down here, and even the colour wheel, the hex code can be set there. So if you move this around, let's say pick a different colour completely, this orangey colour, the red is 168, green is 92, blue is 38, but the simplified hex code is A8-5C26, and then I can flood fill that with that colour. Basically that is why myself and many other people who make tutorials will pass along hex codes. It's only really relevant in a computer program, the display of that colour. I mean, if you wanted to use this colour in your printed document, you would have to then possibly use the CMYK codes, or better still a Pantone colour, because printers would be much happier with a Pantone colour. But like I said, this is really just a very oversimplified way of trying to explain to a newbie how and why hex codes are used in tutorials and how they can enter them into the Affinity Photo or any other program that they may want to use them in. I hope I've made that sort of explanation simple enough but informative enough so people will understand how this sort of works. So thank you for watching, and goodbye.